In this interview, I sat down with Lucas Chang, co-founder of Y2 Entrepreneurship Labs. Lucas was a senior executive for some top organizations prior to transitioning into entrepreneurship, as he felt it was his true calling. He saw a gap in opportunities for youth to become entrepreneurs themselves, and Y2 Entrepreneurship Labs was born. He's developed partnerships in the education and business sectors, which has propelled groups of incredible students into a stratosphere where they produce solutions to problems in a drive to help make the world a better place. Join us as we talk about career transitioning, the emotional impact that comes along with it, and his advice on how you too can become a powerhouse. Your history is quite interesting. It's quite robust. You went from a manager for a global consulting firm to become a director at a telco. And then, let's say around 2015, you went the entrepreneurial route. So
Yeah,
what was the catalyst for you getting to where you are right now? And did it always center on youth, or is it something that you just said, you know what, there's not that big market for that. I want to focus on youth and their development.
yeah. There are a couple stories, I guess, that I would kind of weave into it as a
Mm-hmm.
as a thought. So, when I went to university, my mom wanted me to be a lawyer, so I did what because I was like, I don't know, I play hockey, I play ball hockey. I've thought about my career, which is so different than kids now. Like the kids I work with now are like, I want to be this, and I'm like, I didn't have
They
that
have it
thought till
all
I was,
planned already.
yeah, like they're thinking stuff that
Yeah.
that I was 23 when I had that idea. So I was kind of like, I had accepted the kind of preferred occupation that my mom had for me, and obviously she meant well. But then she wanted me to be a lawyer, and as I went through university, I realized I was was not interested in law at all. So I kind of but I still did the big corporate thing. Worked at Accenture, had a really good time there. Worked at TELUS, met some great people, did some good stuff. But it got to the point in I'd say kind of early 2010s where I was like, I don't think this is what I was meant to do. Like, yes, good people, yes, companies doing some good stuff, but for me, so there was just a sense of calling that I was meant to do something that isn't going to happen at TELUS. So Y2 Entrepreneurship Labs is a company that gives youth, typically between the grades 6 to 12, opportunities to develop their problem solving skills, innovation skills, and then an entrepreneurial mindset. And by that I mean help them kind of build this mindset of, if I'm going to go solve a problem, let me focus on not just the problem but the impact on human beings and what those people need, what they're doing to cope right now, and what do they still need to either eliminate the problem or better cope with the problem. Just earlier today, I was teaching a class of grade 8s, and today they presented their final solutions. And so
Oh,
one team, so they're all kind of 13, 14, they presented a solution for body shaming because one member of the
oh,
group had been body shamed. So that was something that was really meaningful for her. So we built a persona around body shaming. So a 13-year-old girl, she gets these comments about being too skinny. How does that make her feel? What is she trying to do to cope with it? And then when we think of what she needs most, there was, for this group of students, they were like, I think some encouragement and some guidance and suggestion on how to deal with the feelings of being body shamed. And so they decided they're going to create a TikTok and Instagram video campaign
oh.
where they would share tips of like, so how can you deal, how can you think, how do you perceive, here's some practical tips for you to deal with just having heard a comment that you're too skinny. So they picked
Hmm.
problems that were meaningful to them. I ran an event called Startup Weekend, and that was where you had a bunch of people come together. The goal was to work in groups to start businesses, and they worked for 54 hours straight. And then at the end, they could take their business ideas forward. So I created a document to give them and say, within your region, here are all these resources. But in the 7 pages of documents of resources, not one would go into a school to mentor, coach, guide high school students. And that's just for the kids who are motivated. For the
Yeah.
kids who are like, yeah, I've heard about entrepreneurship, I'm curious. There really wasn't anything for someone who was not that committed to a business plan. And
Yeah.
so all of that to say, I kind of went, okay, well, there's stuff for adults and there's nothing like this for
No.
youth. So I wasn't even thinking market. It was more like, well, there's something missing. So why don't I do something? So I created a conference. It took place over 2 Saturdays, and the intention was to reach these youth and give them an opportunity to go through, solving a problem, pitching a solution, but also working with entrepreneurs as mentors, as coaches, workshop facilitators to really bring both communities together, So you've got the community of youth who are interested in learning about entrepreneurship, and you've
Yeah.
got people who run their businesses. And so we smack them, kind of mush them together, give them some context. And the first conference, we had about 60 kids, and the ideas were great.
So two-part question. How do you go about engaging the youth? So how do you attract them to this program? And how do you go about engaging businesses as well as the educational system? So that's actually three parts.
Yeah. So there are two streams of events or activities that Y2 facilitates. One is the conference, which so one is conference, and then one is in classroom. So for conference, what we will do, we'll partner up with a post-secondary institution. So often it would be Seneca College, and we would work with them. We'd host, like, organize the entire conference. We would make sure there was catering.
So in this case, would you say that COVID was the biggest challenge for you, or have you experienced bigger challenges? Like, do you feel like you were resilient and more importantly, able to adapt quickly to this?
I think every stage of me doing whatever I've done, there's been a challenge. And is COVID the biggest? It's certainly different. I don't know if it's the biggest, but it's also it's almost it's like asking me to choose between braised beef noodle and lasagna. I'm like, they're different, but I kind of love them both.
Yeah.
And there's not a point of comparison. And I think, like, when I think of when I started out, I left TELUS. So I had I was paid every 2 weeks. I had a title. I had my network. I had my reputation, all at TELUS. And when I left, that was a big, like, now what do I do? So there was a big emotional challenge there. I remember my first week looking at my calendar. When I was at TELUS, in Outlook, which is what TELUS used at the time, if you're busy, it shows as blue. So I looked at my calendar and it was just blue for like days on end. And that was almost an implicit currency for me. And I'm not saying it's right, but it was a currency for me to go, hey, I've got this blue schedule. I must be valuable. And so for the first week outside of TELUS, when I had no blue, and I switched to a Mac, so that was different as well. But I had no appointments. So I'm like, wow, I'm useless. I remember the
How
first
did it feel emotionally?
Oh, it was like, I remember the first Thursday. So remember, I've been booked, and then I leave, and then by the first Thursday that I was out on my own, I was curled up in bed, going, I'm useless. I don't matter. It was such a different validation. Like, I had different validation needs. So when I was at TELUS, I had no idea that I would like, hey, yeah, I'm double booked. Look at me, I'm double booked. And a week later,
like the job is validating, who we are. And it's like, no, this is your job, but this isn't who you are. This doesn't encapsulate everything that you are.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think it took, right there, you talk about challenges. That was a big emotional challenge for me that I had to reframe what makes me valuable to the world and not have it based on, Outlook blue. I think with COVID, between COVID and social upheaval and just everything that's been 2020, I think staying focused and staying positive has been a bit of a strain. Once tactically I went online and teachers very quickly were like, hey, that's really good. Could you help us with it? I think the business worry, it's still there. Right? I still worry about money. I still worry about it. Where's when will the bubble burst? Will schools be interested? So it's all pretty standard stuff that I was worried about a year ago. But I think it's for COVID, it's the uncertainty of what is the world going to look like. If anything, if I look back in the last 6 months, the fact that I've pivoted and adapted makes me think like, okay, I don't know, maybe the aliens are going to come take us over next month. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure I will be able to do my best to try to, pivot, reframe. And then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I have more of the confidence that, this has been crazy and I've kind of managed through crazy so far. So I think the challenge has just been different. I think if I ran a gym or if I ran a restaurant, my answer would be very different because that's obviously very premise-based. But for me, I was already able to go virtual. So for me to look at the schools and go, okay, what are you guys doing? What do you guys need? Okay, you need me to be this? Yeah, I can be that.
Yeah.
It's been much easier to kind of be there to say, schools, when you need help, I'm right here, which is very different, than it's a different challenge, I think.
What is your biggest success with your business?
The business, it's not one, it's the students. So I don't have one. I'll tell you one story. There's a kid named Logan, worked with him in Keswick. He was in grade 7. And the challenge that his group decided to tackle was around finding jobs. As I found out, his parents, they had challenges keeping jobs. So it was an expression of him. And so he designed, like, they designed a solution, and they also designed an icon for their logo, which is a little robot. And so I promised these students, because when I did a survey in the room, I was like, hey, how many of you have built a website? And like 2 hands out of 40 come up. How many of you have designed an app? 0. And how many of you have designed a 3D thing? 0. And I went, all right. So those of you who learn how to do a 3D design using Tinkercad, I will find a way to print it for you. So I'll take it to there's a place in Newmarket that paid the membership and got it printed. And so, Logan, I drive the printed thing up to him, and he's holding this. And I say to him and his group, I'm like, that used to be in your head, and now you're holding it. And to watch, kind of Logan's eyes light up and just be like, oh my God, I did it. I'm like, yeah, I think this might be one of those. There's a friend of mine uses a phrase called championship moment. And the idea is that when you're having a really bad day down the road, you can come back to this moment in time, this bookmark, this championship moment, and draw from it and go, yeah, you know what, I can do this. And so when you're feeling you can't, or people telling you can't, you can reach back and go, yeah, actually I can, and I did. So for Logan, I think it was a championship moment. He was disengaged, and as he got into designing, like previous class, as he got into designing it, the bell rang, and he was like, I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. And his teacher's like Logan, it's time to go home. Like, you like going home. And he was like, I know, just 5 more minutes. And I thought, here's a kid who wasn't supposed to be engaged, is now engaged. And that to me is one of the success stories.
Any words of advice for entrepreneurs, whether it be youth or not?
Yeah. Number one, you're good enough. That's full stop. So whatever you think, so I find, we all beat ourselves up. And I think entrepreneurs, especially if you're doing your own thing, there's kind of the pull, the tug back and forth of, I really want to see this work. And you look at the people around you and you're like, well, they made it work. Other life coaches and other youth, whatever, and whatever that your industry is and your business is, you're going to look at other people and be like, wow, they're doing it better than me. And you're going to feel like, wow, I suck. And it'd be those days where you're like, I'm not doing enough. Am I good enough? Am I this enough? And I'm just like, so you are. Kind of stop there. I think beyond that, because when you feel you're good enough, you have faith that you'll figure it out. And figure it out doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go to step 2. You may go to step, beta, and you may go to step X. So on the road of entrepreneurship isn't you start off at a project management level, manager level 1, and then go level 2 and then level 3. It's it's this weird spaghetti thing.
Someone told me that no 2 days are alike. And if you're expecting structure such as that, it's not for you.
And along those lines, if your KPI, your personal KPI that you've had a good day, if it's focused on day 1, day 2, day 3 being the same, then you may want to either just rethink whether entrepreneurship is kind of running a business, starting a business is for you, or reframe what does good look like. Why are you doing this business? How do you know that your business has been successful? And also within that, set kind of smaller goals, so that you again, in the spirit of reframing what is success. Like if you're like, okay, my first measure of success is I have reached 100 customers or sold, $100,000 of stuff. That's a really big step. What's kind of that next step where you're like, yeah, you know what? That makes sense. It's helping me get to that goal, but it's something that's shorter term that I can hold on to as a championship moment.
Yeah.
I think pick a problem that you're passionate about. If you're like, I'm going to buy a pizza business, I'm going to run the pizza business, but I hate pizza. Then the days where things are bad, you're going to be like, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? So I say, if you're in the business of bringing people together and seeing people sit together at the same table and break bread, then yeah, maybe running a pizza place is more along your lines. So I think pick a problem that you're passionate about, build a tribe. And by tribe, I mean, there are people that, so running a business can be wonderful, but it can also suck. So people are like, wow, you can be your own boss, but the downside is you're your own boss and you make the final decision, right? There's no one to be like, well, let me go. Right. So you're like, okay, do I sign this deal or not? But if I do, then, X, but if I don't, then Y, and you have to live with the consequences. And sometimes it's really scary. So having a tribe of people who understand what you're going through because they're doing the same thing can be really helpful to really share the honest truth stuff. So a really quick example, I was having beer with a couple of friends. Both are on paper tremendously successful. One guy runs an incubator, another guy runs a digital marketing agency. And we're sitting and having a beer, and it was almost this like, one person started sharing like, yeah, things aren't going like, I'll be fine, but this is what's on my mind and I'm worried and I've been beaten up a little bit and things aren't stellar. Like this is not my best. I'm not happy with this situation. I'm confident I'll figure it out, but I'm not feeling good right now. And the other two, like all three of us started getting into, oh yeah, I'll tell about that time that I was screwed over by so-and-so. And then this didn't work out. And like the vulnerability and sharing the vulnerabilities was something that all three of us were like, yeah, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
But it was so important to be comfortable and you know, it was important to be comfortable sharing that, yeah, you know, I'm not feeling fantastic. Here's why. But it was equally important to have two sets of ears to go, yeah, you know what? I know exactly what that's like. I'm not going to, I'm not going to demean you. I'm not going to make fun of you. I'm going to simply understand you and empathize with you because, you know, we are doing the same thing. So have a tribe, people who are not judgmental, people who can empathize with what you're going through. So when you do sign that deal or you have that success, they're not sitting there going, yeah, but what about me? They're just happy for you. And when things go sour and you screw up, they don't tell you, well, you should have known better. They're just like,
or
yeah,
I told you so.
Or I told you so. Like, just like to have a tribe is so valuable. Like there's a few people, another different group of people. Every month, every 6 weeks, we'll get together on Zoom and we'll like crack open a beer or have a glass of wine together and just be like, here's what's going on good, here's what's going on not so good. And it's just supportive. And it's so nice to just be like, okay, I'm not going to fake this. Like, you know, I'm really proud of this, but I'm kind of worried about that. And yeah, no one's going to judge. So I think the tribe is really important.
Did you slowly or quickly discover who was going to be in your tribe and who wasn't as you were building your business up? Because that's also, I think there's a part of entrepreneurship that people don't really tap into as much. And I think that's the emotional aspect. And the emotional aspect could apply to anything, including, you know, that group around you that you'd be hoping would be a part of that tribe. So did you kind of have to think about, okay, or rethink relationships?
I definitely rethought some relationships. Like some of the people I'm closest to now upon first meeting was like, oh, like I'm not feeling it. In others where I was like, oh my God, like this person would be, you know, we're going to be like really good, and values would differ. You only find that out over time.
Yeah.
I think I try to stay open-minded to the interactions to say, you know what, the people who I trust now, they've given me no reason not to trust them. So I'm not going to be suspicious of them. But when I meet someone new, I'm not like, I'm sorry, we're no longer accepting applications for friends. I'm kind of like I'll try to like, okay, let's be open. And I found that I will be where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so same thing with relationships. If I was meant to be, you know, a good fit with this person for whatever duration of time, then that's what's going to happen. It'll just naturally get there. And I think that being said, I also know what rubs me the wrong way from a value standpoint. So if someone's cheating, if they are dishonest, if they don't have integrity, I tend to just be like, you know what, I don't know your story, but I choose to not spend as much time with that kind of energy, because I've got enough people that I have over here who absolutely exhibit all of those. So I think when someone goes against my value set, I don't necessarily question it. It might make me sad because I might actually I may have wanted to like that person.
Yeah.
But if they're exhibiting stuff that's against my core values, then I'm like, I can say get mad at you, but you're you, I'm me, and we just aren't a good fit. So
we're just not a good fit. That's it.
Yeah. I'll go spend time with other people, even though I may have wanted to. Yeah. I may have wished for a different outcome, but you know, it is what it is.
It is what it is. And finally, I'm going to ask my famous question: are you where you want to be?
I am where I'm supposed to be. I want to be, in terms of evolving and so forth. I think once I'm here, I think of where else I would want to go. So I would say that I am where I want to be right now. I am not where I want to be if this were in the future.
If this were in the future.
Well said. So there's evolution, but it's gratitude, right? Because if I said, no, I'm not where I want to be, then there's a lot, then I'm not great. There's something that I'm wanting. And I'm turning my head over because my daughters are there. Well, again, I'm here, my kids, you know, we're hanging out, we're healthy.
You're exactly where you want to be.
Yeah. And that's his thing, right? So you know, am I where I want to be? I'm where I want to be and where I should be. And in the future, my goal is to also be where I want to be.
That's right. That's right. Very interesting. Very, very complex response, actually, compared to other responses I've received. That's a good one. It's a different angle, and I
Well,
appreciate that.
it's a provocative question, so I appreciate that you asked it. So having said that, so I mean, with your story, because I'm just kind of
Yeah,
tying it back to,
yeah,
this is something, a project that you've had in mind. So now
yeah,
you're doing these interviews, these
yeah.
conversations. Are you where you want to be?
I am not where I want to be. I'm at the beginning of a new journey. I have closed a chapter on a great career. I've had many opportunities, many great experiences, came across many great people, but that's a chapter that's closed. Not that I forget
Mhm.
any of those experiences or those people. I'm at the beginning of a new journey. And for me, in this very moment, I am, but just like you, so that's why I found your response pretty interesting. And for the future, no, not
Mhm.
yet. I still have some things to work out. But
Which
I
is,
feel very content. I feel very happy with what I'm doing. This is something that I've wanted to do for years. And how it actually started, believe it or not, I was at the hairdresser
mhm.
and they're entrepreneurs. And I literally was just asking about the business. And she started to tell me her story and the challenges and whatnot that they had gone through to set up that business. And all of a sudden, just an idea sparked in my head. And I said, I want to interview entrepreneurs. And it ties into the fact that I had wanted to interview for many years.
Mhm.
So it's really following up on a passion project that I had put on shelf, just like the other idea that I was talking to you about.
Yeah.
Like my idea that was put on the shelf, but then end up taking something else off the shelf and then, making that happen. I felt like the opportunity, it could have come at a better time.
I think it's awesome that, like, in this conversation, like, you're living, that part, to your point of, you've had this idea in mind for a while, like, you're
Yeah.
living this life that you dreamt of a while ago, and
Yeah.
in turn you're helping other people who maybe where you were 3 years ago think about
Yeah.
theirs.
Yeah.
You're kind of paying it forward, which I think is amazing.
And
um
that's what I've always wanted to do is I've always wanted to pay it forward. And I'm like, how can I pay things forward? How can I take my experience and then channel that into something that helps others? And again, I've had a great career because I've been able to help people. I've
mhm.
been able to help others, get to where they want to be. But I had to look back. I had to look at myself, especially this year, and say, where do you want to be? And if you want to do something, you got to get up and you got to do it. Right. So I decided, let me take advantage. Even going back to like the emotional aspect of things. Yeah, it's been tough. It's been a transition. I think a lot of people are having challenges acclimatizing,
Mhm.
but this is also a great opportunity to really think about what you want to do. What do you want to do for you?
Mhm.
And it's interesting for people like us, what we want to do for ourselves is really to help other people. I think at the end of the day, if you really want something to happen, you can make it happen, even if it's in baby steps.
Oh, totally.
Even if you have to enlist the help of others, like that tribe that you're talking about, to help make things happen, then do it.
Yeah. Well, and the
Right?
other thing too is, if someone is, so let's say somebody who's listening, they work at a, they've got a job that pays well, they don't
Yeah.
love it, they've got something, that they want to do. Well, it doesn't mean that for them to explore their passion, doesn't mean
Right.
that to quit their job. They may, use evenings and weekends, if, assuming that they've got that availability, to
Yeah.
start looking at that. And they still have the security of being in their well-paying job, but now their
Right.
brain is being tested and they could play with the
Yeah.
idea at no risk.
Yeah. That's
So they're
right.
like, right. So they're different degrees, and it's like we all start from different start lines. So
We
somebody's ready
do.
to run a marathon right off the bat. Someone else is ready. The fact they get off the couch is a big deal. So
Yeah. It's a huge accomplishment just to get up off the couch.
yeah, absolutely.
It's
And
true.
and
It's true.
and no, yeah, and no one's journey is better or worse. It's just different. So I think it's, if someone says, I really want to start a business, great. So, maybe begin with, what problem do you want to
Yeah.
solve, or what business, and play with it, draw it out, and then if you don't like it, recycle the piece of paper.
Yeah.